to think that
Right.
this iconic species on the West Coast is actually going to go extinct unless we do something about it. And the reason, one of the very biggest reasons, is lack of food. This is related to tires, and we can do this. We can solve these things, and knowledge is really helpful.
Hey, y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. I am really happy today to be with Michael Steven. We met at Everything Electric back in 2023, and we were going to do this episode back then, and then one thing led to another, and we didn't do it until this year, but we're doing it this year. We are going to talk about tires, tire wear, pollution, EVs, and how hopefully we can, help Tesla to help us transition to a better future. How is that? So welcome, Michael. It's nice to see you.
Thanks, John. Hey, great to be with you. And I love the fact you're thinking about going on a big adventure up the mountain.
Yeah.
From what I saw in Vancouver, you're a very athletic and fun guy. So nice to hang out with you.
We hope. Yes, indeed. So yeah, let's talk for a minute. Just give everybody the 30-second elevator pitch of why this matters.
Yeah, because Tesla's cars are the best, the fastest, and I just learned recently that actually tires are extremely toxic to salmon. They annihilate salmon at the most vulnerable stages of their life cycle, in the streams when they come to spawn and when they're emerging from the eggs. And our vehicles, the faster you accelerate, the more they shed. There's also no recycling for tires. So I think Tesla has the best engineers, and they are the team. It's our team that can fix this.
Okay. There you go. So they can take a lead in all of this. And at the end of this, you are going to show us your shareholder presentation, right? The what is that proposal, right? So
I
yeah.
definitely could. Yeah, I'd like to put a proposal through for the 2025 AGM. So I
All
appreciate
right.
input on that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let us begin. We're going to back up here. I just found an article. This is from cars.com. I'll put a link in the description. And of course, if you want your presentation to be live too, I can put a link to that as well. So we can
Sure.
discuss that. So anyway, do EVs wear through tires more quickly than gasoline cars? I thought this was an obvious yes. You said that there is some pushback from folks, but let's
Yeah.
take a look at what cars.com is saying. So the sort of general thing is that they wear through tires about 20% more rapidly than a gas car. And one reason is just weight. And apologies, I've got a cold, so I'm yeah. So anyway, you can see they have a BMW that weighs, in the gas version it's 3,800 pounds, and in the electric version it's 4,550 pounds. So it's quite a bit more. So it weighs a lot more. The tires have to be heavier. Fatter and more tire surface and everything like that in order to hold up a heavier vehicle. And of course, you also want reduced rolling resistance, things like that. And then, of course, you've got acceleration from EVs. That's the best part of an EV, especially a Tesla, is that you get to just blast off, right?
Exactly. I've tried a bunch of fast cars, and Teslas are right up there.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we all have fun doing that, but there is a consequence to that. And then, of course, you have to replace your tires, and tires, as you said earlier, are not recyclable, which is except if you want to put them in playgrounds or something. You were saying specifically the salmon. Of course, you're a resident of the Pacific Northwest.
Right.
Salmon, obviously critically important, but is there also a discussion about, I mean, these pollutants can't be great for humans either, because of course, as you drive a car, little tiny particles come off. In fact, actually, let me go ahead and flip to that slide real quick, because you've got there it is. Sorry. This little guy right here. This
Yeah.
stuff is constantly shedding from cars. So every time you're near a road, which pretty much everybody is, you're breathing this stuff in. It's going into the water supply. It's generally bad. Not
I
a good
told
thing to have this stuff.
And
Yeah.
I think we all know that. I knew that earlier too, but I didn't realize the stuff was so toxic. That's what
Mm-hmm.
got me interested, and the reason I got involved.
Right. So yeah, so I guess I'll go back to slide 1 here for just a second. So anyway, tire toxicity. So yeah, let's talk through this. We'll just kind of walk through
Yeah.
the slides and discuss it. So yeah, so why Tesla, first of all? Because there's lots of car companies in the world, and there's lots of tire manufacturing companies in the world.
There's only one Elon Musk, though, and there's only one Tesla. And when Elon and Tesla decide that something's a priority and a impediment to their mission, then they stomp on the accelerator with the best people and the best technology, and they get the job done in a way that the incumbents tend to not be able to do. And that's why I've been a Tesla investor for many years. hardcore into following all things about Elon and Tesla, and I feel like this is my team. I feel like when Tesla has approached a problem before, like think about, we're building our own lithium refinery because the world wasn't making enough batteries. We decide our own form factor, the 4680s. We're doing all kinds of things to accelerate the transition to sustainable energy as fast as possible. So, as I said, I've driven all kinds of fast cars. The Lamborghini was my favorite car as a kid. I got the opportunity to floor that as an adult. Other fast cars, and then Teslas, and now we have Plaid. And for me, I actually have no interest at all in going quickly in a vehicle now that I've learned what those tire particles do to fish. And you mentioned human health. You're absolutely right. That tire dust goes into the air. It goes into the water. It's found in the blood in the urine of children and men and women, and especially high concentrations in pregnant women all crazy things.
Yeah.
It's in the air, so these particles are tiny and it's not just driving fast, but the instant torque of an electric car just burns through that rubber so much faster. And the chemical from this tires accumulates on the roads, goes into streams. As I said, it hurts salmon. As far as the human health impacts, this is only an area that's basically been researched since about 2021. The preeminent the preeminent study that announced this chemical called 6-PPD to the world was in December of 2020. So it's only since then that studies have been following this chemical. And so for the human health aspect, there isn't a lot known, but they do know that it reduces body mass index in children, and it can lead to a reduced immunity. And this is only in the last few years. So it's both the fish and the people. But so why Tesla? Because I want to bring the fun back into fast. Like, this is how we advertise our vehicles, right? It is fun to drive an EV and to drive a Tesla. And this is something Elon spoke about a lot. Like, what's the most fun you can have in a vehicle? We want it to be a Tesla. And I want to have that spirit of fun and adventure and excitement when I get into a fast vehicle. Number two here, tire chemicals, as we said, they harm fish. Anything that's going to harm an aquatic species, you can be quite sure it's going to harm humans as well. And besides, we end up eating the fish.
Yeah, too, exactly. Right? So it gets up in our bloodstream anyway. So
all that tire rubber goes into the ocean. We end up eating it in the salmon or other fish that we eat. As you mentioned, EVs do wear tires faster than gas models. And Tesla, you'll remember, but you remember when EVs weren't going to happen because they were a crazy idea and nobody thought it would work, and everyone was like, oh, Tesla is nuts. And then Tesla basically took a leap across a great chasm to get the Model 3 ramped up. That was brutal time. I remember that very, very distinctly. It was hard to make an affordable EV. Tesla did it. Tesla is one of the main reasons that EV adoption is now becoming mainstream, and why there can be an everything electric conference where you see all the models there. It was amazing. So Tesla's leading the way with this, and is I'd say one of the primary reasons why EV adoption is increasing so rapidly. This is another thing that Elon has mentioned before. So we're on to number 5 here. As EV transportation costs go down, the number of vehicles on the road will increase. The traffic congestion will increase because
we can take a slight tangent on that, which is the Cybercab event on the 10th.
Yes,
there's a good chance that they're going to be, I guess because it's the Cybercab event, but they're going to introduce a vehicle that's going to be designed to drive, let's say 18 hours a day or something like that, as opposed to the common maybe 1 hour a day that we drive our cars. So that's a huge amount of usage on those tires as the vehicle drives around.
You're totally right. And I hope we can talk more about that later, because that's a big deal in the Tesla world, and it has big implications for tires. But the fact is, as more tires go on the road, there'll be more tire wear. And even I remember Elon saying regarding the semi, that the cost of semi transportation will be less than rail, which is a huge deal. So all that heavy traffic now going onto the roads on rubber instead of metal rails, that's a big deal. So I feel like Tesla's partially responsible for this EV transition, and this is an unintended consequence, as there often are.
Right.
Something that surprised me was that actually tires are not recycled into new tires. And you mentioned them being chipped up on the playgrounds, and you said
Right.
if you can call that recycling. So I'm a professional agrologist. I work on environmental pollution for a living, and it's a regulated profession here in British Columbia. And I've looked into this, and in my opinion, the chipping up of these old tires and putting them on playgrounds is not recycling. That's just dispersed landfill disposal, because
Right.
those chemicals are still leaching.
Right.
You know, they
And
get
in a way, if you think about it, your children are right in that, rubbing their fingers and their feet on it and breathing in the exhaust fumes, or whatever it's off gassing. So yeah.
exactly. I know a couple people personally who, because my kids are involved in sports, for the soccer fields, these adults, if they go near the field on a hot day, they have to leave immediately because of headaches.
Right. Right.
So
And yeah,
chip it.
for anybody who's had been around one of those kinds of fields with the artificial turf, it has lots of those little chips in it. And when it gets hot at all, you smell that kind of rubbery, whatever the heck it is. But that's probably not good for you, whatever that is that's coming out. So
Not
yeah.
exactly good. And I have a slide further down that shows, the real issues that the tire industry, excuse me, has had in dealing with old tires, because there
Right.
hasn't been end-to-end recycling.
Right.
So this is an issue. Even even when you're finished with your tire, it's not finished in the world. It still exists, and it
Right.
has to go somewhere.
Right.
Um, Okay, number 7, sustainable EVs need sustainable tires. This is what I'm getting at when I say that it's an impediment to Tesla's vision of transitioning the world to sustainable energy as fast as possible.
Right.
Because what is sustainable? What is a sustainable future if the tires that we use are killing salmon, harming our health? Is that the sustainable great future that we as Tesla shareholders are working towards? No, it's a unintended consequence, and we need to deal with that.
Right. Right. Right.
And then Tesla's talent. Tesla's
Yeah.
often said, and it's in their materials, that they hire the best engineers. The Cybertruck you and I were speaking about recently, and you're thinking about getting one. I've got a
Right.
reservation actually. Uh, that has its own stainless steel, an
Yeah.
alloy that came from Starship.
Right.
And when it comes to the batteries, they invent their own materials as well for that. So,
Yeah.
uh, as I said, I think when Tesla puts their foot to the floor on getting something done, they do it faster than the incumbents, and they can
Right.
assist, right? They're
Right.
very good at sharing their tech. The tire problem is not a Tesla specific problem, it's all
Right.
tires, and it's
Yeah.
actually all rubber products. But I
Right.
think Tesla has the winning team to get involved.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, it's not a binary kind of situation either. It's like if they can even make it 10% less toxic or 15%, that's still way, when you talk about the number of billions of tires that are on the road, doing that is an aid to transitioning the world to be a better place. So yeah. So and I was thinking about the batteries as a good antecedent to these tires, because of course people were like, oh, when the batteries wear out, this is a lot of toxic chemicals that are going to get dumped into the environment. And of course, there are redwood materials, a lot of other places, and Tesla is helping with this to recycle these batteries and do it efficiently and access as much. So all of these things are areas that Tesla's already working in. So cool. Let's go on. There we go. We can go through some of these slides quickly. So
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah.
this just happens to be one of my favorite pictures of all time, as far as
Right.
the tech associated with Elon Musk, the
Right.
landing of rockets. So I feel like I put in this quote from the recent earnings call. It's just simply because Elon and Tesla think about things differently. They
Right.
weren't asking how to build an incrementally better rocket. No, the question was, how do we make interplanetary travel possible? Okay, so
Right.
they need a fully reusable, fully recyclable, or fully reusable, rapidly reusable rocket. And the industry
Right.
just wasn't ready for that. So they
Yeah.
had to invent new tech. And I feel like the future is very bright if we work to make it so, but it will
Yeah.
be work. And so
Yes.
this relates to the question of tires. Uh,
Right.
it, I remember, same as the EVs weren't going to happen, people were saying, and this was mainstream, very popular, that rockets that could land back at the launch pad was just not possible because
Right.
metal fatigue and
Right.
all these kind of things. So
Right.
Elon and Tesla go back to, what are the laws of physics? Is this
Right.
physically possible, right? Is this
Right.
within the realm of possibility that we could land a rocket and reuse it quickly. So this is how it relates to tires.
Yep.
I think people are looking at incrementally better tires, but that's not
Right.
the issue here. What we actually need, similar rockets, is a fully reusable, as in recyclable tire that's non-toxic to the environment. Now,
Right.
is that compatible with the laws of physics and then chemistry, which is a subset of physics? I would say
Right.
yes, it is. The natural environment does this all the time. And in limited ways, we do this with some metals, glass, and some plastics. So the
Right.
question is, let's shoot higher. Let's ask for the bigger goal and get there together.
Nice. I like that. That's great. All right. And then this is actually a very good point as well. Is that Tesla doesn't just go out to a supplier and say, "Give me tires." They like help to create these tires and have
Exactly.
over the years. Yeah.
Yeah, this was actually fun. I didn't know this. So this is this slide here is from material from 2024. Prior to 2024, I had never seen Tesla talk about tires at all, except
Right.
that Cybertruck had a groovy looking sidewall to it,
Yeah.
right? But it turns out Tesla is intimately involved in tire production already. So this isn't a new area for them. Lars, who's the head of engineering, has said that they co-developed tires with Pirelli. That
Hmm.
was back in March, I think. Yeah, March of
Yep.
2024. There was a
Yep.
YouTube interview. And then back in the summer in May, he had an interview with Franz. And
Hmm.
he actually said they have F1 engineers on staff and that they also work with their tire suppliers. And then on the Tesla website, there's it turns out that Tesla has a Tesla approved vehicle tire. I didn't know that. And you see that stamp there. Have you ever seen this? The
Uh,
TO?
oh,
I'd never seen that before, but that stands for Tesla approved
really?
iteration one. And so they put a zero in there for the first iteration. The second
Wow.
iteration will be T1 and then T2, T3. I think that's super cool. So they're actually
Yeah.
working with their suppliers and stamping on their tires. This is a Tesla approved tire. That is awesome. That is recent news. I just came across that link a couple weeks ago. This TO, I think that's so cool.
That's very cool. I didn't know that either. That's actually, see, I learned something. There we go already.
Yeah,
So that is,
yeah,
yeah,
and
that I'll have to, I mean, obviously on the new tires, because we haven't swapped our tires yet, but that's good to know when looking for a new set of tires when the old ones wear out.
it totally makes sense. And Lars says this during this interview here with the Model 3, the upgraded Model
Hmm.
3. You know that tires are the most important thing on the car, and they're one of the heaviest things by mass. Like when you
Right.
consider all four tires
Yeah.
related to any other single component besides
Right.
the battery.
And they're rolling, which means that the mass, because it's angular momentum and everything, is even more effectively huge. So yeah.
Yeah, and Tesla's vehicles are so great. You can't put them on some garbage tires because you're not
Yeah.
going to get the performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so Lars here, I just wrote a bit of his quote. So he says about these different things, criteria: it has to be quiet, it has to be comfortable, it has to be aerodynamic. I would say it also has, let's add this to the engineering list.
Right.
It also has to be fully recyclable and has to be non-toxic. Now,
Right.
we don't expect you to do that this month, but we
Right.
want you to
Yeah.
work on it super hard.
Yeah. That's true. I mean, what else can you say? This is something I want to make a point that, you talked about the Model 3 ramp back in 2018 and the production hell. That was not the time to make a request of Tesla to do this. They were in survival mode. It's like just make it happen. Now feels like the time. Tesla is a leader. It's the leader in the world basically. Even the Chinese companies, like you hear BYD saying, we look to Tesla to see what we're supposed to do, and they are one of the most aggressive competitors. So it's like, okay, Tesla, now is the time to take the lead, to put some of that massive engineering talent to the test, because it sounds like an impossible job, like landing a rocket. But
Yeah.
it's like, how can you possibly make a fun, fast, long wearing, and non-toxic and recyclable? That sounds impossible. But if anybody can
Yes.
do it, it's Tesla. It's
Well, they
their
make the
engineering.
impossible late, right? So
Yeah, exactly. There we go. That's
I was
perfectly right.
excited to see this stamping on their tires. So we just add it as
Yeah,
another
yeah.
criteria.
That's very cool. Yeah, make it, generation 3 or whatever, 2 or 3. So
Yep.
here we get to the unhappy reality of things right now. This is, again, obviously not only Tesla. Every car that's driving on the road right now is responsible for this. But
You're
yeah.
totally right. It's every tire, and you know, it's a preservative. So what is tire rubber will break down through reaction with oxygen and ozone, which is a molecule of oxygen. And it interferes with the carbon bonds in the rubber, and the byproduct of that reaction is extremely toxic to fish. For about 20 years in Washington State, around Seattle, here in the United States, people were discovering that when coho salmon would come back to spawn, they would all die. All of them,
Wow.
like 40 to 100% of salmon would die in these urban streams, and they did not know why. And then it wasn't until December of 2020, researchers from the University of Washington State did an amazing study. It's worth reading that online if you're a scientist and like that kind of stuff. But it was a beautiful study, and they discovered the source. It was they did a bunch of reduction reactions to isolate what this chemical was, and they discovered it was from tires. And it's especially bad in the fall because the chemical builds up on the roads, and then the fall rains wash it in the streams.
Right. Right.
It turns out it's actually an issue across the states and Canada and the world. So, and this chemical builds up in the environment. It's ubiquitous around the world. The Chinese have done some great studies talking about BYD, but the Chinese have had some of the most helpful scientific studies on this subject. I'd say they're leading the way as a group on finding where this is in the environment. It's in lakes and watersheds in Canada, everywhere.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I lived in Los Angeles for a while back in the 90s. And I remember because it wouldn't rain for like 6 months, like nothing. And then the first rain or two that would happen, the roads, it was incredibly dangerous because the roads were like ice skating rinks, because I think all these, there was a lot of other stuff. There was oil on it and all this other stuff, but these particles, and they had to wash off. But then, of course, they all end up in either the ocean or into local lakes and streams, and then eventually in the ocean anyway. So, but yeah, let's go back to, sorry. So we have this, we have, of course, the Pacific salmon life cycle, which they, as you said, they have to go upstream to spawn. And it's very sad. I didn't realize that these urban streams were basically just killing them as they came back upstream to spawn. So
yeah, and the fish have already had a hard time with other issues like overfishing, power hydro dams, and all that kind of stuff. But this chemical hits them at their most vulnerable stage, as I said, when they're coming to spawn or when they are emerging from the eggs, because salmon live part of their life cycle in freshwater and then go into the ocean for a period of time, a year and a half or so, and then come back.
Right.
So when they come back and they get close to urban areas with this tire dust, it just can complete. Actually, some salmon populations are actually going extinct.
Right.
Which is crazy to believe.
Yeah.
And this is a major factor in that now.
Yeah. And I'm reminded of DDT back in the 1960s and 70s, that there was that people were like, why are birds dying and just not reproducing? And that they finally realized it was DDT was causing the shells to be soft. And we collectively, as humanity, it took a while, but we managed to get rid of most of the DDT, which has allowed many bird species that looked like they were going to go extinct to actually bounce back. So this is not this is not the end of the world. It's not like there's no way to solve the problem. We've done this before collectively as a species and made things better. So yeah,
we absolutely have, John. And I would say that this isn't bad news. If something's happening, I'd rather know about it than not know about it. Now that we know, a lot of research is going on, and people can actually solve this.
Yeah. I like this particular slide. I mean, it's a nice little graphic, but you can see different places where the tire wear gets spread out to, houses and things like that. It gets the atmospheric rain. It rains. It goes into gutters, goes into streams, gets ingested by humans, gets ingested by animals. This mitigation thing up here, is that the idea is that there are plants and things that might be able to pull some of it out of the environment, or?
Yeah, so there are things called rain gardens. It's not on this slide, but actually microbes and fungus and soil, especially compost, high quality compost, not compost that has plastic in it. I would not recommend that. Some compost facilities have very bad quality compost, but pure good compost can remove this chemical from the water, and it can have up to 90% removal rate, which is amazing.
Wow.
So the trick is to collect that water off roads. And I think in most highways, it's not in the short term practical to develop collection for all the water, but over the long term, that's a great idea. Plus, looking at this diagram, you got to keep in mind that a lot of that dust goes into the air. So it's not on the road anyway. And it goes into such tiny particles that it goes right deep into your lungs as well.
Right. Yeah, which I've got a cold right now, so so I mean, I'm sure it's not from that, but there is people who live near highways, near heavy traffic density, have a much higher risk of heart disease, lung disease, cancers, obviously, and and tires aren't the only reason. Of course, there's exhaust fumes that come out of vehicles, but I can't imagine that tire particles are not part of that problem
Yeah,
because they are being ingested. Yeah,
they probably are, John. It's just we don't have a lot of research on that, but it
right.
completely makes sense that tires would be a contributing factor.
Yeah,
Although EVs will be helping to reduce that too, because a lot of that is the particulates from the combustion of the
right, right.
combustion engines.
Yeah, and speaking of we know that stuff is incredibly toxic and that it goes into your lungs because it's just completely airborne. So, yeah. So then we have
So
beautiful
yeah,
orcas.
well, orcas. So there's two types of orcas on the West Coast. We have what are called northern transient orcas that go from basically down to Oregon up to Alaska, past the west coast of Canada. And then we have southern resident killer whales. The transient ones eat the mammals like seals, and the local southern resident whales eat salmon, especially Chinook. And these southern resident whales, I I didn't really understand this, but the fact is they are going extinct. And so looking into this subject, it actually breaks my heart to think that
Right,
this iconic species on the West Coast is actually going to go extinct unless we do something about it. And the reason, one of the very biggest reasons, is lack of food. So
right,
I'm from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, and we have our local hockey team as the Vancouver Canucks. Fantastic team, so much fun to watch.
right.
And this is our team logo, right? It's an orca.
Yeah, yeah,
What,
yeah.
like, what is the West Coast without orca? What is
Right,
our hockey team if the actual animal that we admire,
right.
it goes extinct? So
Yeah.
this is related to tires, and we can do this. We can solve these things, and knowledge is really helpful.
And we don't want to get like too depressing for people and think it's hopeless. But as you
No,
said, the best thing to do is know about it so that you can then start to mitigate it. And we'll talk. I mean, I think what you said earlier, like just one thing, it's really hard because I love to accelerate fast, but to be like, okay, chill out a little bit, try to like reduce tire wear a little bit. It'll help you economically too, honestly, because your tires will last longer. So, at the
yeah,
very least, right now you can do that.
yeah. And in fact, I don't find this depressing at all because people can solve these issues if they want to.
Right.
I
Right.
think recent world events have shown us that pretty much anything is possible, say in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And things that you never thought would happen could happen, for good and for bad. And we are very capable, if we want to save salmon and our own health and whales, to redesign tires and work at it
Yeah.
relentlessly.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, everyone talks about AI and all that stuff. It's like, hey, we've got artificial intelligence now is getting really good at designing computer chips, at thinking about, global climate change, things like that. You could throw some AI, and hey, who has a bunch of AI resources right now? That happens to be Tesla.
That's
Hey,
very true.
so there is the possibility of using that because at this point we've with Alpha, the protein folder, not AlphaGo, Alpha. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name, but DeepMind's Google DeepMind's protein folding uh, AI. Anyway, you could say, hey, we need a chemical that does these, and these things. Look for it, and maybe take a research project that would take 10 or 20 years and reduce it down to a couple of months to find some candidate chemicals to actually begin using this. So there are possibilities like that are available now that weren't available 5 years ago. So
That's a very interesting point. I hadn't thought of
yeah,
that. Yeah.
AlphaFold. My goodness, my brain. So anyway, yeah,
So
this
this
is
is a
interesting. Yeah,
slide. Yeah, this is a slide from a group out of the UK, and they're called the Tire Collective. And so they're developing an electrostatic mechanism to collect tire dust from the rear of vehicles. So it goes right behind each tire. And they've actually got a partnership with Rivian, and they did some field testing last year, about 8,000 miles, I believe, or 8,000 kilometers, testing this thing connected to the back of some of Rivian's electric delivery vehicles. So this is like this box on the left here, box X26. This is showing 1 day of tire wear for that single bus on a long route. So think about Tesla semis.
Wow.
and how they would, be carrying heavy loads all day long. So this is definitely a problem for our team. The
Yep.
boxes to the far right, those small ones, if you zoom in, uh, that's
Yeah.
the one second from the right. That's an EV. It's because EVs wear tires faster, and it says for 1 day. And then
Right.
for the far right, it's a electric car, or sorry, a gas car of the
Gas
same
car.
weight and,
Yeah. Yeah.
model for
Right.
1 day. And so I was interested in this, and one of the other slides I've got, actually, I measured out how much 53 grams of rubber is, because the little box was kind of small. So I measured it at
Right.
home. To think that's just 100 kilometers. So 53 grams of rubber is from 100 kilometers of driving.
Wow.
Um,
Wow.
it's a lot. So I was really surprised at how much is lost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it, I guess tires last a long time, and it's amazing that we've developed chemicals that, do that. But, you drive 10, 15, 20,000 miles or kilometers or whatever, you're going to see the tires start to go, and so that's got
Yeah.
to go somewhere. It's not just magically disappearing into the vacuum of space. So, yeah.
Especially if you're enjoying that plaid model and the 0 to 60s. Like, it
Yeah.
is so fun. I just want to
Yeah.
have, like, as Elon has said, like, life should be more about more than just problems. It should be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with having a good time in your fast car.
Yeah, exactly.
This is
Yeah, this is
Yeah,
interesting
this
here
is
too.
just a slide. I had heard or read that a Canadian scientist, Marcus Brinkman from the University of Saskatchewan, compared the amount of this 6-ppd-Q chemical and
Right.
to how much would be required to kill all the fish if they were in an Olympic-sized pool. And he said his words were, it would be like a pinch of salt.
Jeez.
So I did some calculations, which we won't have to show everybody today, but
Right.
basically I figured out that that's equal to 0.24 grams of 6 ppdq. 6 ppdq is the byproduct of 6 ppd. So that's
Right.
what I've got there in that little spoon. And that amount of the chemical in a Olympic sized pool would kill all fish in that pool. This is
Jeez.
equal to like a 95 parts per billion.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
what got my attention when I read the scientific paper.
Yeah. And that
95
is
nanograms.
sobering. That's
It's
very
super
sobering.
toxic. So I
Yeah.
don't have a
Yeah.
tire in this picture, but you can see that little person off to the left, and you imagine a
Right.
tire at their feet.
Yeah.
Each tire, through its lifespan, releases enough chemical to kill all the fish. So for every tire you use in the life of your car, it's got
Right.
enough of that chemical that it would kill all the fish in a pool like that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, it's
Yikes.
the it's one of the most toxic chemicals known actually on the
Right.
planet.
That's crazy. And you said it's a preservative that's added to the tire to keep it from
Exactly.
exploding?
So
Yeah.
6-ppd is a short name for this preservative that prevents oxidation. It's actually throughout the tire rubber, and over
Right.
time with wax as it comes to the surface. So rain washes it off, and more wax with this chemical comes to the surface where it reacts with oxygen. That's its job, so that the
Got
oxygen and ozone don't react with the rubber.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So
in a way, weirdly enough, with the Cybertruck, it's a little bit like stainless steel, where what it does is it creates an oxidation layer on the outside,
yes.
yeah, to protect the inside. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, you're
Interesting.
right. And so when you wash your tires, actually, it makes like a brown film, and
Yeah.
that washing that off will make more of the chemical come to the surface. So
Right.
aesthetically, it's better if you don't wash that off too often. So this is my
Right.
page of calculations where I came up with that 0.24 grams, which people can look
Yeah.
at later.
Okay. Yeah, you can always pause this. Obviously, I will keep going because I don't. We don't need to do actual calculations on this. But anyway, so yeah. So okay. So stockpiled scrap tires. I mean, this is a scary thought too. Is scrap tires and things.
Yeah, so this was a surprise to me too. When I read about that study in fish, I started looking into it because I wanted to make a shareholder proposal. And so this is from the U.S. Tire Manufacturers Association. Their data in 1999, in 1990, they had about 1 billion tires piled up around the country. And by
Wow.
2021, 95% of those had been, they say, cleaned up, exclamation mark. Only
Yeah.
15 million tires left to go. Well, where do those things go? My next slide shows. But in the 70s, they were trying to find ways to get rid of these tires. And so they thought, well, maybe it would, and I think it was perhaps an honest mistake. They thought maybe these tires would make an excellent artificial reef. Let's dump 500,000 of them off the coast of Florida. No,
Right.
it turned out that was a very bad idea. The
Yeah.
tires bounced all over the reef and wrecked things. And so even
Right.
now, there's a group called 4Ocean that's cleaning this up.
Yeah. I will go even one step further. There was some point in my youth where I remember them burning tires en masse. That you'd have
Yeah.
these junkyards that would just pile them up and just burn. And I mean, whew, talk about releasing toxic chemicals into the. So I'm glad they're not doing that anymore. At least that's a good thing. So yeah. And
And
here
so
we go.
this
This
is,
is where scrap tires go. Yeah. So
yeah, John. So this is, again, the industry association tells us where this goes. And about 32% of them go into what's called ground rubber, which is what we were talking about with sports fields. And this picture on the right is from my neighborhood. You can see all the black. This is where
mhm,
my child is playing soccer. All these
right.
black crumb rubber, and it leaches into the storm drains. Actually, this stuff gets tracked home. So every day after a soccer game or
Yeah.
practice, this material will be attached to my child's socks and cleats. It goes all through the house, and it spreads in the grass around these fields as well. And then
Yeah.
32% of them, of these old tires, get burnt. A bunch of them get
Yeah.
disposed of in
Well, here I
landfills.
was saying it's good that they don't get burned anymore, but I guess they still do. Jeez.
Well,
Man.
they're a source of fuel for cement kilns, actually.
Mhm.
They need all that heat to cure the lime, from what I understand.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
and so none of these are going into recycling of
Yeah.
new tires. They're actually even used in civil projects like embankments for a new bridge, etc. But the industry really, I think the industry, give them the benefit of the doubt. They're trying to do the right thing, but there just hasn't been a economical process to make them back into new tires. So let's help them out.
So, and honestly, for somebody who's entrepreneurial, I mean, you could think about like what Redwood Materials did by going into it and saying, we have got to figure out a way to recycle batteries. Let's do this. This is something where it couldn't just not only Tesla, but some other company. There's a lot of tires out there. Even if we waved a magic wand and all tires from now on were totally recyclable and non-toxic and all that stuff, there's still billions and billions of tires on the road right now. And those tires need to be somehow, ecologically correctly and economically beneficially recycled or upcycled or converted into something else. I don't know what that is, but this is a big challenge, but it's also a big opportunity.
It's a huge economic opportunity, John. You're totally right. The
Yeah.
team that
So
solves this will make a lot of money and also help the
right.
world.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a pretty good 1-2 punch right there. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, do
So
EVs retire? We talked about this a little bit at the beginning, but yeah, here's your an analysis or data or whatever of that. So, yeah.
a little bit, yeah. So I'm part of an electric vehicle association, actually two different electric clubs here in Vancouver, and a lot of the members are very hesitant to believe that EVs would have anything wrong with them. And especially people are concerned, I think, about the perception that if it becomes public knowledge that EVs wear through
Mm,
tires faster, then this will somehow slow down the adoption of EVs. And people point out, well, they do, EVs have less pollution because they're not building combustion engines
right.
and all the byproducts of that. But the fact is, the research shows, and can objectively tell by driving an electric vehicle, they do
Right.
wear down tires faster. And so I came across, when I was talking to my friends in this electric vehicle association, I actually gave them a presentation a while ago as well. And so I was looking for some actually hard data, like a published study. And so I came up with this one here. And they had studied 76 taxis over 2 years, hybrid versus gas of the same model. And they found that the gas cars wore through about 53 milligrams per kilometer uh, per car.
Right.
53 milligrams per kilometer, yep. Whereas hybrids would be 72. So that was the study attributed that to the increased torque rather than the weight, because the hybrids were not tremendously heavier than the gas cars, but they did have
Right.
that instant torque. So this is what the
Right.
author said it
Right.
was from, that hard acceleration. And then
Yep.
what are some other facts? Oh, so on the right here, what I did was measure out 53 grams because I wanted to see how much is that.
Yeah.
So this would be the equivalent of driving 100 kilometers in
Jeez.
sort of this gas car. And then, so if you had a hybrid that was 72 milligrams per kilometer, multiply that by 100, you would get
Right.
53 or 73 grams. So this is 53 grams, which is basically 100 kilometers of driving in a,
Right. Are you
an
sure that's
average
not
sized gas car.
1,000 kilometers, right? Because it's milligrams. Actually, it should be per 1,000 kilometers, I think, not 100. But anyway,
You're right.
yeah, yeah,
Oh, you're right, John. Yep.
yeah.
Sorry.
But I mean, still, it's
Thank you
like,
for that. Yeah, 1,000.
sorry. But
Okay,
I mean, we're
excellent.
talking about it's still a significant amount. I
One,
mean,
two,
that's
three.
clearly not microscopic. It's like that's something you can hold in your hand. Yeah,
You're right. Thank you for that. Yep, 1,000 kilometers, John.
yeah.
So,
So
and then this study also, so one of the main factors in reducing tire wear is actually the type of tires you use, and this is something robotaxis can help with, I think.
yeah,
Is that summer tires wear down a lot less quickly than winter tires, and this you can see 53 and then 112 and 160. So I
right.
see a lot of people in my area on the coast with winter tires right into the summer. And so it's
Yeah,
really important to change those tires out when the
right.
seasons change because it
Yeah,
has a huge impact on how much tire wear. So it'll save you money if you have two sets of tires and switch them out, but also create a lot less pollution. And then driving style. In this scientific study, they mentioned that braking and acceleration were the most impactful factors on tire wear. They didn't explain this, but they said that braking was more impactful than acceleration. And next
mm,
impactful was cornering, and then speed was a least impactful. So the
right.
actual speed that you're going doesn't make so much difference. It's how fast you got there and how fast you decelerate
Yeah,
and then
okay,
cornering. And then,
right.
my friends in this EV associations, they've been saying, we're hesitant to really acknowledge. But the fact is, Michelin here even says that tires are heavier, faster acceleration, 20% 20% faster tire wear, they say, than comparable ICE vehicles.
Right. Right. And
Yeah.
again, anecdotally from my own experience and people I know, it's like, yeah, I go through tires a lot faster. So, if it's a 40,000-mile tire or 60,000 kilometer tire or whatever, I tend to go through that, 8 to 10,000 miles faster than what the rated recommendation. Now, in the old version, I tend to drive a little bit fast anyway, but even in a gas car, it wouldn't last 40,000 miles, but say 36, 37,000 miles for me. But this is more like 30 to 32,000 miles. So it's distinctly faster, the wear on these cars. And then there's
Yeah.
also the weight, of course, too. So that was something they didn't really take account of here, but the weight is important as well. So, hey,
So
Cybercab,
here's some
we
fun
robot.
stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to this event.
Neither am I.
Hopefully you can get in. But
I
holy
hope
cow,
so.
like Elon said, this is one for the history books, and I'm
Yeah.
excited about it for so many reasons. But
Right.
also the robotaxis, I think, will have a meaningful difference on tire wear, and that
Right.
is because you can program these things to be chill, right?
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
And also they'll have the correct tires at the correct tire pressures.
Right.
It'll be the cyber taxi will probably be lighter weight per passenger. So a lot of people are going around in heavier vehicles than they need to because it's their own
Mhm.
personal do everything vehicle.
Yep.
But a cyber cab will be less weight on the road, probably a smaller battery, and also accelerating and decelerating more slowly. And here's something else. Maybe Tesla will design, actually, I would expect they will design a custom tire for their robotaxi
Hmm.
specifically
Hmm.
for it. And so it'll
Right.
have exactly the right compounds because it's not a race car. So it doesn't
Yep.
need to have that super sticky grip.
Right.
And I'm excited and hope that Tesla, maybe this is their first tire that they'll stamp with the approval and add that this is actually a fully recyclable tire.
That would be cool. That would be amazing. Honestly, even if it was just something like a tire that had a far longer longevity than most tires because it doesn't have to have those other features. And of course, they can also, if you're talking about fleets and stuff, again, I think people forget about how important tire pressure is. Most cars nowadays have tire pressure monitors or gauges. Like you can just pop it up on your little your visualization. Tesla makes it super easy. 2.9 bar is what it's supposed to be. Just was at Costco yesterday, realized one of my tires was a 2.5 bar. So they have a free filler right there. So I just went and popped it up and filled it up to the correct amount. So it's important because if they get flatter, they more rubber is contacting the road, and that means it's going to wear out faster. And of course, there's more rolling resistance and all this other stuff. So keep your tires at the right pressure. It's really important. It'll help you too because your tires will last longer, but also
Yeah,
help
good
the environment.
Yeah, good point, John. And also, these taxis, in addition to keeping their tires at the correct pressure, they could be programmed to specifically reduce tire wear.
Yeah.
And because robotaxis, will be safer than the typical human driver, much safer. They will be able to anticipate traffic flow, because a lot of times when you're in rush hour, you see people kind of speeding up and then slowing down. It kind of goes like a centipede down the road, like stop, go,
Yeah.
stop, go. But if the cars are excellent drivers, they'll look ahead, they'll anticipate flow, and they'll slow down
Right.
gradually and then accelerate, and the traffic flow will just level out instead of stopping and going.
Yeah. Yeah. I've said this often to people in the car with me as I've been frustrated in that kind of traffic, but also just on YouTube as well. That when you have a red light and it turns green and you're like, say 15 cars back, and it might take 30 or 40 seconds before you start. That doesn't have to happen. And the same thing for slowing down. If you have a bunch of vehicles that all know what they're doing and all drive properly, they could all start at the same time, basically. And slow down at the same time so that you can reduce that kind of like that kind of thing
Yeah.
that you're saying. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's
you're
very
probably a far better than average driver, but you see a lot of people doing that, right?
right. Right.
So then the We Robot event is gonna, in 1010, we're gonna learn a lot more about this. Here's this picture of a rain garden. So this is in West
Yeah.
Vancouver or North Vancouver, here in British Columbia, and this is an experimental area where they discovered. This is researchers from the University of British Columbia discovered that they had up to 90% reduction in this toxic chemical 6-ppd-Q by
Wow.
having the water filter off the road into this beautiful rain garden. So that's incredible, and this is very
Yeah.
doable, right?
Yeah. And
And
it
then
looks
off to the
gorgeous too. I mean, it's not an eyesore. It's beautiful. So that's great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then off to the right is an image of the Tire Collective's
Mm,
hydros
right.
electrostatic dust collector, mounted, and so it goes behind a
Right.
tire. So this is something. It's interesting. They're partnering with Rivian, and I wonder. I'm just really interested in this robotaxi, but you see how the rear tires are enclosed.
Hmm.
Uh, that
Oh,
would be a
yeah.
that would be a great place for collecting dust because it's all enclosed. In
Right.
the lab, the Tire Collective's website says that they get 80% collection, but on their road trials, it was only about 20%.
Right.
So if you have the rear tires enclosed, that would be a much better place to
Yeah.
try and have some mechanism for filtering out these particles. Yeah, so there's lots of interesting things we may see in that vehicle.
Yeah, yeah, that's cool. And potential, even if it's not there in Gen 1, it could be there in the future. So
Yeah,
electrostatic works because as the tire is rubbing against the ground and rubbing these particles off, it's sort of like you rubbing your hand on a balloon or rubbing it, it becomes statically charged and then it can suck that up. I don't know if it's positive or negative, depends on the material and stuff, but obviously you just run an electrostatic thing of the opposite charge and it just sucks all the particles up, or as many as it can get. Yeah.
yeah, and I haven't looked into that much. But these things are difficult to maintain. I think they need a lot of
Yeah.
cleaning, and you can imagine how a lot of debris would get thrown in there as well off the road. So
Right.
it's
Right.
definitely it's an area where these folks could use some help, I would say.
Yeah.
But a
And
very
it's
important and exciting development.
Yeah, it's a very cool idea, that's for sure. All
Super
right,
cool.
so this gets us finally to your uh what you want to do for 2025. So May, June, whenever they have their shareholder meeting. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. So I'm considering submitting a proposal, and I would love to have shareholders' input on this because I did submit a proposal for the 2024 AGM, and it was rejected. Um, but the key thing is how I word the question. So I
Yeah.
would like the Tesla community, if they could, to give me some suggestions on, as we saw those rockets landing, right? It's the question that matters. Are we asking the right question? Otherwise, we can't get the right answer. So what is the correct
Right.
request for Tesla management regarding tires? Something that's neither micromanaging of the company nor too vague to be understood and followed as direction. That's what I need. So if you'd like to help me with this, please let me know. You can contact me there on X, Mike or Steven. He was on our first slide. And any kind of support would be appreciated. I want to do this as a collective.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also important. Just having been at some of these meetings and watched other ones, the proposals often start with like, "We hate you. We think you're the worst company in the world. Now do this." It's like, come on, guys. You have to give Tesla credit, and I think what you're doing in the shareholder proposal makes really good sense. It's not like you're berating them, but you're saying, hey, this is a continuing problem globally. It's, again, not just a Tesla thing, but Tesla can lead and help to make this a standard and help other companies understand how to do this as well. This is a global good. It's not just good for Tesla, it's good for the planet and the salmon and the humans and, probably most other creatures as well. There's, so much evidence recently, not just tires, but just microplastics in general are inside of us now. It's crazy the amount of microplastics that we're ingesting. And these effectively are plastics because of everyone says rubber, but they're not really rubber anymore. There's some weird combination of plastics, and it's kind of miraculous that it works as well as it does. But toxic is not good, and not recyclable is not good. So there has to be a better way to do this.
Exactly, and I'm glad you brought us back to that picture of the Plaid. So this is from the new performance seats in the Model S. I think the Model 3 Performance has the same ones. I'm not sure. But this is a cool image stitched right into the seats. And this is like the excitement of what our company has. The winning team creating Plaid performance in a production vehicle, Model S, fastest production vehicle on the planet. And this is a common good. This is not about, Tesla's just one of many vehicle producers. But we happen to have the best talent, the best leadership. We have the AI capability that you mentioned. And we can join the global effort to find a solution to these tires so that we can bring the fun back into fast.
Yeah. And hey, if Lars or somebody from the Tesla team just happens to watch this, not like you have to wait till next May or June for the shareholder proposal. Tesla could just go like, this is a priority, and just make it happen. Let's do it now.
Please do it now. Yes. Announce it on 10/10.
The world would be happy. That would be cool. That would be very cool. And say like, oh, by the way, we're also doing this as well. So So let us know, folks, what you think about all of this stuff in the comments. I have a feeling there will probably be some people who will be upset, like you said, some of your friends are, that you don't want this like bad press about EVs. It's like, oh, don't say anything bad or else it'll be a problem. But we have to be honest. We can't just like go like this and say like, oh, EVs are perfect. They're not perfect. I mean, obviously the minerals, the mining, the carbon footprint of manufacturing them is higher, more significant than it is for building a gas car. No question about that. Over the lifetime of the vehicle, it's definitely better and less environmentally impactful. But again, with the tires, it's like, it's amazing these tires work as well as they do, and they're economical and everything for people to own a car and have these tires. But they have these problems, and we shouldn't just close our eyes to them. We need to figure out how to solve these problems. That's what we do as humans.
Totally right.
Yeah.
Go Team Tesla.
Yeah. I like that you say we. I always say they, and I'm like, no. I own part of Tesla. It is we.
Yes. My kids joke with me because I say, when I see a Tesla driving by, I say, oh, thank you for buying a car from my factory. Like, Dad, it's not your factory. I'm like, yes, it is. I have a little piece of that factory. And Elon has often thanked the Tesla shareholders, especially the retail shareholders, as having a meaningful impact on the company. And I do feel like I'm part of the team, a very small part, but as a community, it's quite something.
Yeah, it is. It's huge. All right. So we will stop that here. Let us know in the comments what you think. Of course, write to Michael on X, and I'll leave all of the information in the description so you can easily access it. But yeah, let us know what you think. And in the meantime, we will see you in the next video, and hopefully at 10:10, or at least live streaming it from somewhere else. So we'll see you later. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John.